Questions 2.00 and 2.21. Test your knowledge. 1. What are some things to do at an accident scene to prevent another accident? 2. Name 2 causes of tire fires. 3. What kinds of fires is a BC extinguisher not good for? 4. When using your extinguisher, should you get as close as possible to the fire? 5. Name some causes of vehicle fires. These questions may be on the test. If you can't answer them all, rewrite subsections 2.20 and 2.21. 2.22. Alcohol, other drugs, and driving. 2.2.1. Alcohol and driving. Drink alcohol and then driving is very dangerous and a serious problem. People who drink alcohol are involved in traffic accidents resulting in over 20,000 deaths every year. Alcohol impairs muscle coordination, reaction time, depth perception, and night vision. It also affects the parts of the brain that control judgment and inhibition. For some people, one drink is all it takes to show signs of impairment. How alcohol works. Alcohol goes directly into the bloodstream and is carried to the brain. After passing through the brain, a small percentage is removed in urine, perspiration, and dry breathing, while the rest is carried to the liver. The liver can only process 1/3 an ounce of alcohol per hour, which is considerably less than the alcohol in a standard drink. This is a fixed rate, so only time, not black coffee or cold shower, will sober you up. If you have drinks faster than your body can get rid of them, you will have more alcohol in your body, and your driving will be more affected. The blood alcohol concentration, BAC, commonly measures the amount of alcohol in your body. See figure 2.22. What is a drink? It is the alcohol in drinks that affects human performance. It doesn't make any difference whether the alcohol comes from a cup of beers or from 2 glasses of wine or 2 shots of hard liquor. Approximate blood alcohol content. Drinks, body weight in pounds, effects. All the following drinks contain the same amount of alcohol. A 12-ounce glass of 5% beer, a 5-ounce glass of 12% wine, a 1.5 ounce shot of 80 proof liquor. What determines blood alcohol concentration? BAC is determined by the amount of alcohol you drink. More alcohol means higher BAC. How fast you drink, faster drinking means higher BAC, and your weight. A small person doesn't have to drink as much to reach the same BAC. Alcohol and the brain. Alcohol affects more and more of the brain as BAC builds up. The first part of the brain affected controls judgment and self-control. One of the bad things about this is it can keep drinkers from knowing they are getting drunk. And of course, good judgment and self-control are absolutely necessary for safe driving. As BAC continues to build up, muscle control, vision, and coordination are affected. More and more effects on driving may include straddling lanes, quick jerky starts, not signaling, failure to use lights, running stop signs and red lights, improper passing. See figure 2.23. These effects mean increased chances of crash and chances of losing your driver's license. Accident statistics show that the chance of a crash is much greater for drivers who have been drinking than for drivers who have not. How alcohol affects driving. All drivers are affected by drinking alcohol. Alcohol affects judgment, vision, coordination, and reaction time. It causes serious driving errors such as increased reaction time to hazards, driving too fast or too slow, driving in the wrong lane, running over the curb, weaving. Effects of increasing blood alcohol content. Blood alcohol content in the body of alcohol, in the amount of alcohol in your blood recorded in milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood. Your BAC depends on the amount of blood, which increases with weight, and the amount of alcohol you consume over time. How fast you drink. The faster you drink, the higher your BAC, as the liver can only handle about 1 drink per hour. The rest builds up in your blood. BAC, effects on the body, effects on driving condition. Figure 2.23. Figure 2.2.2. Figure 2.22.2. Other drugs. Besides alcohol, other legal and illegal drugs are being used more often. Law prohibits possession of use of many drugs while on duty. The prohibition being under the influence of any controlled substance, amphetamines, including pep pills, uppers, and beanies, narcotics, or any other substance which can make the driver unsafe. This could include a variety of prescription and over-the-counter drugs called cold medicines, which may make the driver drowsy or otherwise affect safe driving ability. However, possession and use of the drug given to a driver by doctor is permitted, and if the doctor informs the driver that it will not affect the safe driving ability. Pay attention to warning labels for legitimate drugs and medicines, and to the doctor's orders regarding possible effects. Stay away from illegal drugs. Don't use any drugs that hides fatigue. The only cure for fatigue is rest. Alcohol can make the effects of other drugs much worse. The safest rule is to don't mix drugs with driving at all. Use of drugs can lead to traffic accidents resulting in death, injury, and property damage. Furthermore, it can lead to arrests, fines, and jail sentences. It can also mean the end of a person's driving career. 2.22.3 Illness. Once in a while, you may become so ill that you cannot operate a motor vehicle safely. If this happens to you, you must not drive. However, in case of an emergency, you may drive to the nearest place where you can safely stop. 2.23 Hazardous material rules for all commercial drivers. All drivers should know something about hazardous materials. You must be able to recognize hazardous cargo, and you must know whether or not you can haul it without having any hazardous materials endorsement on your CDO license. 2.23.1 What are hazardous materials? Hazardous materials are products that pose a risk to health, safety, and property during transportation. See Figure 2.24. 2.23.2 What are the rules? You must follow the many rules about transporting hazardous materials. The intent of the rules is to contain the product, communicate the risk, ensure safe drivers and equipment to contain the product. Many hazardous products can injure or kill on contact. To protect drivers and others from contact, the rules tell shippers how to package safely. Similar rules tell drivers how to load, transport, and unload bulk tanks. These are containment rules. To communicate the risk, the shipper uses a shipping paper and diamond-shaped hazardous labels to warn dock workers and drivers of the risk. Hazardous class definitions. Class name, example. After the accident, a hazardous material spill or leak, you may be injured and unable to communicate the hazards of the materials you are transporting. Firefighters and police can prevent or reduce the amount of damage or injury at the scene if they know what hazardous materials are being transported. Your life and the lives of others may depend on quickly locating the hazardous materials shipping papers. For that reason, you must identify shipping papers related to hazardous materials or keep them on the top or others of other shipping papers. You must also keep shipping papers in a pouch on the driver's door or in clear view within reach while driving or on the driver's seat when out of the vehicle. 2.23.3 List of regulated products. Place cards are used to warn others of hazardous materials. Place cards are signs put on the outside of the vehicle that identify the hazards class of the cargo. A place card vehicle must have at least 4 identical place cards. They are put on the front, rear, and both sides. Place cards must be readable from all 4 directions. They must be at least 9.8 inches, 250 millimeters inches square, turned upright on the point, in a diamond shape. Cargo tanks and other bulk packaging displays the identification number of their contents on place cards or orange panels. Identification numbers are a 4-digit code used by first responders to identify hazardous materials. An identification number may be used to identify more than one chemical on shipping papers. The identification number will be preceded by the letters NA or UN. The U.S. Emergency Response Guidebook ERG lists the chemicals and the identification numbers assigned to them. Not all vehicles carrying hazardous materials need to have place cards. The rule about place cards are given in Section 9 of this manual. You can drive a vehicle that carries hazardous materials if it does not require place cards. If it requires place cards, you cannot drive it unless your driver license has the hazardous material endorsement. See Figure 2.25. The rules require all drivers of place guarded vehicles to learn how to safely load and transport hazardous products. They must have a commercial driver's license with a hazardous material endorsement. To get the required endorsement, you must pass all written tests on material found in Section 9 of this manual. A tank endorsement is required for any commercial vehicle that is designed to transport any liquid or gaseous materials in a tank or tanks having an individual rated capacity of more than 119 gallons and an aggregate capacity of 1,000 gallons or more that is either permanently or temporarily attached to the vehicle or chassis. The liquid or gas does not have to be hazardous material. Drivers who need the hazardous material endorsement must learn the place guard rules. If you do not know if your vehicle needs place guards, ask your employer. Never drive a vehicle needing place guards unless you have the hazardous material endorsement. To do so is a crime. When stopped, you will be cited and you will not be allowed to drive your truck. It will cost you time and money. A failure to place guard when needed may risk your life and others if you have an accident. Emergency help will not know of your hazardous cargo. Hazardous material drivers must also know which products they can load together and which they cannot. The rules are also in Section 9. Before loading a truck with more than one type of product, you must know if it is safe to load them together. If you do not know, ask your employer and consult the regulations. Subsection 2.2 and 2.3 Test your knowledge. 1. Common medicines for colds can make you sleepy. True or false? 2. Coffee and a little fresh air will help a drinker sober up. True or false? 3. What is hazardous materials place card? 4. Why are the place cards used? These questions may be on the test. If you can't answer them all, we read sections 2.2 and 2.23. Section 3. Transporting cargo safely. This section covers inspecting cargo, cargo weight and balance, securing cargo, cargo needing special attention. This section tells you about hauling cargo safely. You must understand basic cargo safety rules to get a CDL. If you load cargo wrong or do not secure it, it can be a danger to others and yourself. Loose cargo that falls off a vehicle can cause traffic problems and hurt others, could be hurt or killed. Loose cargo could hurt or kill you during a quick stop or crash. Your vehicle could be damaged by an overload. Steering could be affected by how a vehicle is loaded, making it more difficult to control a vehicle. Whether or not you load and secure the cargo yourself, you are responsible for inspecting your cargo. Recognizing overloads and poorly balanced weight. Knowing your cargo is properly secured and does not obscure your view ahead or the sides. Knowing your cargo does not restrict your access to emergency equipment. If you intend to carry hazardous material that requires place guards on your vehicle, you will also need to have a hazardous material endorsement. Section 9 of this manual has the information you need to pass the hazardous materials test. 3.1. Inspecting cargo. As part of your vehicle inspection, make sure the truck is not overloaded and the cargo is balanced and secured properly. After starting inspection, inspect the cargo and its securing devices again with the first 50 miles after beginning a trip, making adjustments needed. Recheck the cargo and securing devices as often as necessary during the trip to keep the load secure. You need to inspect again. After you have driven for 3 hours or 150 miles, after every break you take during driving, federal, state, and local regulations of commercial vehicle weight, securing cargo, covering loads, and where you can drive large vehicles vary from place to place. Know the rules where you will be driving. 3.2. Weight and balance. You are responsible for not being overloaded. The following are some definitions of weight you should know. 3.21. 3.2.1. Definitions you should know. Gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR. The value specified by manufacturers as the loaded weight of a single vehicle. Gross combination weight rating, GCWR. The value specified by the manufacturer of the power unit if the value is displayed on the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards FMVSS certification label or the sum of the gross vehicle weight ratings GVWR or the gross vehicle weights GVWS of the power unit and the towed units of any combination, therefore that produces the highest value. The underlined and italicized text above is for use by roadside enforcement only to determine whether the driver vehicle is subject to CDL regulations. is not used to determine whether the vehicle is representative of the purposes of skills testing. Axle weight. The weight transmitted to the ground by only axle or one set of axles. Tire load. The maximum safe weight a tire can carry at a specified pressure. The rating is stated on the side of each tire. Suspension systems. Suspension systems have a manufacturer's weight capacity rating. Coupling device capacity. Coupling devices are rated for the maximum weight they can pull and or carry. 3.2.2 Legal weight limits. You must keep weights within legal limits. States have maximum for GVWR, GCWRs, and axle weights. Often maximum axle weights are set by a bridge formula. A bridge formula permits less maximum axle weight for axles that are closer together. This is to prevent overloading bridges and roadways. Overloading can be bad effect on steering, braking, and speed control. Overloaded trucks have to go very slowly on upgrades. Worse, they may gain too much speed and on downgrades. Stopping distance increases. Brakes can fail when forced to work too hard. During bad weather or in mountains, it may not be safe to operate at legal maximum weights. Take this into account before driving. 3.2.3 Don't be top heavy. The height of the vehicle's center of gravity is very important for safe handling. A high center of gravity cargo piled up high or heavy cargo on top means you are more likely to tip over. It is more dangerous in curves or if you have to swerve to avoid a hazard. It is very important to distribute the cargo so it is as low as possible. Put the heaviest parts of the cargo under the lightest parts. 3.2.4 Balance the weight. Poor weight balance can make vehicle handling unsafe. Too much weight on the steering axle can cause hard steering. It can damage the steering axle and tires. Underloaded front axles caused by shifting way too far to the rear can make the steering axle way too light to steer safely. Too little weight on the driving axles can cause poor traction. The drive wheels may spin easily. During bad weather, the truck may not be able to keep going. Weight that is loaded so there is a high center of gravity causes a greater chance of rollover. On flatbed vehicles, there is also a greater chance that the load will shift to the side or fall off. See figure 3.1. 3.3 Securing cargo. 3.3.1 Blocking and bracing. Blocking is used in the front, back, and or sides of the piece of cargo to keep it from sliding. Blocking is shaped to fit snugly against the cargo. It is secured to the cargo deck to prevent cargo movement. Bracing is also used to prevent movement of cargo. Bracing goes from upper part of the cargo to the floor and or walls of the cargo compartment. 3.3.2 Cargo tie down. On flatbed trailers or trailers without sides, cargo must be secured to keep it from shifting or falling off. Enclosed vans tie downs can be important to prevent cargo shifting that may affect the handling of the vehicle. Tie downs must be of the proper type and proper strength. Federal regulations require the aggregate working load limit of any securement system used to secure an article or group of articles against movement must be used 1/2 times the weight of the article or group of articles. Proper tie-down equipment must be used, including ropes, straps, chains, and tensioning devices, winches, ratchets, clinching components. Tie-downs must be attached to the vehicle correctly. Hooks, bolts, rails, rings. See figure 3.2. Figure 3.2. Tie-down devices. Cargo should have at least one tie down for each 10 feet of cargo. Make sure you have enough tie downs to meet this need. No matter how small the cargo is, there should be at least 2 tie downs holding it. Cargo should have at least one tie down for each 10 feet of cargo. Make sure you have enough tie downs to meet this need. No matter how small the cargo is, it should have at least 2 tie downs. There are special requirements for securing various heavy pieces of metal. Find out what they are if you are to carry such loads. 3.3.3 Header boards. Front end header boards. Headache racks. Protect you from your cargo in case of a crash or emergency stop. Make sure the front end structure is in good condition. The front end structure should block forward movement of any cargo you carry. 3.3.4 Covering cargo. There are 2 basic reasons for covering cargo: to protect people from spilled cargo, to protect the cargo from weather. Spill protection is used. Spill protection is a safety requirement in many states. Be familiar with the laws in the states you drive in. You should look at the cargo covers in the mirrors from time to time while driving. A flapping cover can tear loose, uncovering the cargo and possibly block your view or someone else's. 3.3.5 Sealed and containerized loads. Containerized loads generally are used when freight is carried part by the rail or ship. Delivery by trucks occurs at the beginning and or end of journey. Some containers have their own tie-down devices or locks that attach directly to a special frame. Others have to be loaded onto flatbed trailers. They must be properly secured just like any other cargo. You cannot inspect sealed loads, but you should check that you don't exceed gross weight and axle weight limits. 3.4 Cargo needing special attention. 3.4.1 Dry bulk. Dry bulk tanks require special care because they have a high center of gravity and the load can shift. Be extremely cautious, slow, and careful going around curves and making sharp turns. 3.4.2 Hanging meat. Hanging meat, suspended beef, pork, lamb in a refrigerated truck can be a very unstable load with a high center of gravity. Particular caution is needed on sharp curves such as off-ramps and on-ramps. Go slowly. 3.4.3 Livestock. Livestock can move around in a trailer, causing unsafe handling. With less than a full load, use false bulkheads to keep livestock bunched together. Even when bunched, special care is necessary because livestock can lean on curves. This shifts the center of gravity, and makes rollover more likely. 3.4.4 Oversized loads. Overlength, overwidth, and overweight loads require special transit permits. Driving is usually limited to certain times. Special equipment may be necessary, such as wide loads, signs, flashing lights, flags, etc. Such loads may require a police escort or pilot vehicles bearing warning signs and or flashing lights. These special loads require special driving care. Section 3. Test your knowledge. 1. What 4 things related to cargo are drivers responsible for? 2. How often must you stop while on the road to check your cargo? 3. How is gross combination weight rating different from gross combination weight? 4. Name 2 situations where legal maximum weights may not be safe. 5. What can happen if you don't have enough weight on the front axle? 6. What is the maximum number of tie downs for any flatbed load? 7. What is the maximum number of tie downs for a 20-foot load? 8. Name the 2 basic reasons for covering cargo on an open bed. 9. What must you check before transporting a sealed load? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread Section 3. Section 4. Transporting passengers safely. This section covers vehicle inspection, loading, on the road, after trip vehicle inspection, prohibited practices, use of brake door interlocks. Bus drivers must have a commercial driver's license if they drive a vehicle designed to seat more than 16 or more passengers, including the driver. Bus drivers must have a passenger endorsement on their commercial driver's license. To get the endorsement, you must pass a knowledge test on Section 2 and 4 of this manual. If your bus has air brakes, you must also pass a knowledge test on Section 5. You must also pass the skills test required for the class of vehicle you drive. 4.1 Vehicle inspection. Before driving your bus, you must be sure it is safe. You must review the inspection report made by the previous driver. Only if it defects reported only if defects reported earlier have been certified as repaired or not needed to be repaired. Should you sign the previous driver's report, this is your certification that defects reported earlier have been fixed. Defects reported earlier have been fixed. 4.1.1 Vehicle Systems. Make sure these things are in good working order before driving. Service brakes, including air hose couplings, if your bus has a trailer or semi-trailer. Parking brake. Steering mechanism, lights and reflectors, tires, front wheels must not have recapped or regrooved tires. Horn, windshield wipers, rear vision mirror or mirrors, coupling devices if presented. Wheels and rims, emergency equipment. Make sure your bus has the fire extinguisher and emergency reflectors, 3 reflective triangles or at least 6 fuses or 3 liquid burning flares, required by law. The bus must also have spare electrical fuses unless equipped with circuit breakers. 4.1.2 Access doors and panels. As you check the outside of the bus, close any open emergency exits. Also, close any open access panels for baggage, restroom, service, engine, etc. before driving. 4.1.3 Bus interior. People sometimes damage unattached buses. Always check the interior of the bus before driving to ensure rider safety. Aisles and stairwells should always be clear. The following parts of your bus must be in safe working condition. Each handhold and railing. Floor covering. Signaling devices, including the restroom, emergency buzzers, if the bus has a restroom, emergency exit handles. The seats must be safe for riders. All seats must be securely fastened to the bus. Never drive with an open emergency exit door or window. The emergency exit signs on the emergency door must be clearly visible. If there is a red emergency door light, it must work. Turn it on at night or any other time you use the outside lights. 4.1.4 Roof hatches. You may lock some emergency roof hatches in a partially open position for fresh air. Do not leave them open as a regular practice. Keep in mind, the bus's higher clearance while driving with them open. 4.1.5 Use your seatbelt. The driver's seat should always have a seatbelt. Always use it for safety. 4.2 Loading and trip start. Do not allow riders to leave carry-on baggage in a doorway or aisle. There should be nothing in the aisle that might trip other riders. Secure baggage and freight in ways that avoid damage and allow the driver to move freely and easily. Allow riders to exit by any window or door in an emergency. Protect riders from injury if carry-ons fall or shift. 4.2.1 Hazardous materials. Watch for cargo and baggage containing hazardous materials. Most hazardous materials cannot be carried on a bus. The Federal Hazard Materials Table shows which materials are hazardous. They pose a risk to health, safety, and property during transportation. The rules require shippers to mark containers of hazardous material with the material's name, identification number, and hazardous label. There are 9 different 4-inch diamond-shaped hazardous labels. See Figure 4.1. Watch for the diamond-shaped labels. Do not transport any hazardous materials unless you are sure the rules allow it. Hazard class definition. Class name, example. (4.2.2) Forbidden hazardous materials. Buses may carry small arms ammunition labeled ORMD, emergency hospital supplies and drugs. You can carry small amounts of some other hazardous materials if the shipper cannot send them any other way. Buses must never carry. Divisions 2.3 Poison gas liquid. Class 6 poison tear gas. Irritating material. More than 100 pounds of solid class 6 poisons. Explosives in the space occupied by people except small arms ammunition. Labeled radioactive materials in the space occupied by people. Move more than 500 pounds total of allowed hazardous materials and no more than 100 pounds of any one class. Riders sometimes board a bus with an unlabeled hazardous material. Do not allow riders to carry on common hazards such as car batteries or gasoline. 4.2.3 Standee line. No rider must stand forward of the rear of the driver's seat. Bus is designed to allow standing must have a 2-inch line on the floor or some other means of showing riders where they cannot stand. This is called the standee line. All standing riders must stay behind it. 4.2.4 At your destination. When arriving at your destination or intermediate stops, announce the location, reason for stopping, next departure time, bus number. Remind drivers to take carry-ons with them if they get off the bus. If the aisle is on a lower level than the seats, remind riders of the step down. It is best to tell them before coming to a complete stop. Charter bus drivers should not allow riders on the bus until departure time. This will help prevent theft or vandalism of the bus. 4.3 On the road. 4.3.1 Passenger supervision. Many charters and intercity carriers have passenger comfort and safety rules. Mention rules about smoking, drinking, or use of radio and tape players at the start of the trip. Explaining the rules at the start will help avoid trouble later on while driving. Scan the interior of the bus as well as the road to the sides and the rear. You may have to remind riders about rules or to keep arms and heads inside the bus. 4.3.2 At stops. Riders can stumble when getting on or off, and when the bus starts to stop. When the bus starts or stops, caution riders to watch their step and when leaving the bus. Wait for them to sit down or brace themselves before starting. Starting and stopping should be as smooth as possible to avoid rider injury. Occasionally, you may have a drunk or disruptive rider. You must ensure this rider's safety as well as that of the others. Don't discharge such riders where it would be unsafe for them. It may be easier at the next scheduled stop or a well-lighted area where there are people. Many carriers have guidelines for handling disruptive riders. 4.3.3 Common accidents. The most common bus accident. Bus accidents often happen at intersections. Use caution, even if a signal or stop sign controls other traffic. School and mass transit buses sometimes scrape off mirrors or hit passing vehicles when pulling out from a bus stop. Remember the clearance your bus needs and watch for poles and tree limbs at stops. Knowing the sizes of the gap your bus needs to accelerate and merge with traffic. Wait for the gap to open before leaving the stop. Never assume other drivers will brake to give you room when you signal or start to pull out. 4.3.4 Speed on curves. Crashes on curves that kill people and destroy buses result from excessive speed. Often, when the rain or snow has made the road slippery, every blanked curve has a safe designed speed in good weather. The posted speed is safe for cars, but it may be too high for many buses. With good traction, the bus may roll over. With poor traction, it might slide off the curve. Reduce speed for the curves. If your bus leans toward the outside on a banked curve, you are driving too fast. 4.3.5 Railroad highway crossing stops. Stop at a railroad crossing. Stop your bus between 15 and 50 feet before railroad crossings. Listen and look in both directions for trains. You should open your forward door if it improves your ability to see and hear an approaching train. Before crossing after a train has passed, make sure there isn't another train coming in the other direction on other tracks. If your bus has a manual transmission, never change gears while crossing the tracks. You do not have to stop, but must slow down and carefully check for other vehicles at streetcar crossings, where a policeman or a flagman is directing traffic. If a traffic signal is green, at crossing marked as exempt or abandoned. 4.3.6 Drawbridges. Stop at drawbridges. Stop at drawbridges that do not have a signal light or traffic control attendant. Stop at least 50 feet before the draw of the bridge. Look to make sure the draw is completely closed before crossing. You do not need to stop, but must slow down and make sure it's safe. When there is a traffic light showing green, the bridge has an attendant or traffic officer who controls traffic whenever the bridge opens. 4.4 After trip vehicle inspection. Inspection. Inspect your vehicle at the end of each shift. If you work for an interstate carrier, you must complete a written inspection report for each bus driven. The report must specify each bus and list any defect that would affect safety or result in a breakdown. If there are no defects, the report should say so. Riders sometimes damage safely related parts such as handhelds, seats, emergency exits, and windows. If you report this damage at the end of a shift, mechanics can make repairs before the bus goes out again. Mass transit drivers should also make sure passenger signaling devices and brake door interlocks work properly. 4.5 Prohibited practices. Avoid fueling your bus with riders on board unless absolutely necessary. Never refuel in a closed building with riders on board. Don't talk with riders or engage in any other distracting activity while driving. Do not tow or push a disabled bus with riders aboard the vehicle unless getting off would be unsafe. Only tow or push the bus to the nearest safe spot to discharge passengers. Follow your employer's guidelines on towing or pushing disabled buses. 4.6 Use of brake door interlocks. Urban mass transit coaches may have a brake and accelerator interlock system. The interlock applies the brakes and holds the throttle in idle position when the rear door is open. The interlock releases when you close the rear door. Do not use this safety feature in place of parking brake. Section 4. Test your knowledge. 1. Name some things to check in the interior of a bus during a vehicle inspection. 2. What are some hazardous materials you can transport by bus? 3. What are some hazardous materials you can't transport by bus? 4. What is a standee line? 5. Does it matter where you make a disruptive passenger get off the bus? 6. How far from a railroad crossing should you stop? 7. When must you stop before crossing a drawbridge? 8. Describe the prohibited practices listed in the manual. 9. The rear door of a transit bus has to be open to put on the parking brake. True or false? These questions may be on your test. If you cannot answer them all, reread Section 4. Section 5. Air brakes. This section covers air brake system parts, dual air brake systems, inspecting air brakes, using air brakes. This section tells you about air brakes. If you want to drive a truck or bus with air brakes or pull a trailer with air brakes, you need to read this section. If you want to pull a trailer with air brakes, you also need to read Section 6, Combination Vehicles. Air brakes use compressed air to make the brakes work. Air brakes are a good and safe way of stopping large and heavy vehicles. But the brakes must be well maintained and used properly. Air brakes are really three different braking systems: service brake, parking brake, and emergency brake. The service brake system applies and releases the brakes when you use the brake pedal during normal driving. The parking brake system applies and releases the parking brakes when you use the parking brake control. The emergency brake system uses parts of the service and parking brake systems to stop the vehicle in a brake system failure. The part of these systems are discussed in greater detail below. 5.1 The parts of an air brake system. There are many parts to an air brake system. You should know about the parts discussed here. 5.1.1 Air compressor. The air compressor pumps air into the air storage tank reservoirs. The air compressor is connected to the engine through gears or a V-belt. The compressor may be air-cooled or may be cooled by the engine cooling system. It may have its own oil supply or Be lubricated by engine oil. If the compressor has its own oil supply, check the oil level before driving. 5.1.2 Air compressors governor. The governor controls when the air compressor will pump air into the air storage tanks. When air tank pressure rises to the cup-out level around 125 pounds per square inch or psi, the governor stops the compressor from pumping air. When the tank pressure falls to the cut-in pressure around 100 psi, the governor allows the compressor to start pumping again. 5.1.3 Air storage tanks. Air storage tanks are used to hold compressed air. The number and size of air tanks varies among vehicles. The tank will hold enough air to allow the brakes to be used several times, even if the compressor stops working. 5.1.4 Air tank drains. Compressed air usually has some water and some compressed oil in it, which is bad for the air brake system. For example, the water can freeze in cold weather and cause brake failure. The water and oil tend to collect in the bottom of the air tank. Be sure that you can drain the air tank completely. Each air tank is equipped with a drain valve in the bottom. There are two types. Many operated by turning a quarter turn or by pulling a cable. You must drain the tanks yourself at the end of each day of driving. See figures 5.1. Automatic. The water and oil are automatically expelled. These tanks may be equipped for manual drawings as well. Automatic air tanks are available with electric heating devices. These help prevent freezing of the automatic drain in cold weather. Manual draining valve, figure 5.1. 5.15 Alcohol evaporator. Some air brake systems have an alcohol evaporator to put alcohol into the air system. This helps to reduce the risk of ice in air brake valves and other parts during cold weather. Ice inside the system can make the brakes stop working. Check the alcohol container and fill up as necessary every day during cold weather. Daily air tank drainage is still needed to get rid of water and oil, unless the system has automatic drain valves. 5.1.6 Safety valve. A safety relief valve is installed in the first tank the air compressor pumps air to. The safety valve protects the tank and the rest of the system from too much pressure. The valve is usually set to open at 150 psi. If the safety valve releases air, something is wrong. Have the fault fixed by a mechanic. 5.1.7 The brake pedal. You put on the brakes by pushing down the brake pedal. It is also called the foot valve or throttle valve. Pushing the pedal down harder applies more air pressure. Letting up the air brake reduces the air pressure and releases the brakes. Releasing the brakes lets some compressed air go out the system, so the air pressure in the tanks is reduced. It must be made up by the air compressor. Pressing and releasing the pedal unnecessarily can let air out faster than the compressor can replace it. If the pressure gets too low, the brakes won't work. 5.1.8 Foundation brakes. Foundation brakes are used at each wheel. The most common type is the S-cam drum brake. The parts of the brake are discussed below. Brakes, brake drums, shoes, and linings. Brake drums are located on each end of the vehicle's axles, the wheels, and bolted to the drums. The braking mechanism is inside the drum. To stop, the brake shoes and linings are pushed against the inside of the drum. This causes friction, which slows down the vehicle and creates heat. The heat a drum can take without damaging depends on how hard and how long the brakes are used. Too much heat can make the brakes stop working. S-cam brakes. When you push the brake pedal, air is let into each brake chamber. Air pressure pushes the rod out, moving the slack adjuster, thus twisting the brake cam shift. This turns the S-cam, so-called because it's shaped like the S letter, the letter S. The S-cam forces the brake shoe away from one another and presses them against the inside of the brake drum. When you release the brake pedal, the S-cam rotates back and a spring pulls the brake shoes away from the drum, letting the wheels roll freely again. See figure 5.2, drum brake. Figure 5.2, wedge brakes. In this type of brake, the brake chamber push rod pushes a wedge directly between the end of two brake shoes. This shoves them apart and against the inside of the brake drum. Wedge brakes may have a single brake chamber or two brake chambers pushing wedges in both ends of the brake shoes. Wedge type brakes may be self-adjusting or may require manual adjustment. Brake discs. Disc brakes. In air-operated disc brakes, air pressure acts on a brake chamber and slack adjuster, like S-cam brakes, but instead of S-cam, a power screw is used. The pressure of the brake chamber on the slack adjuster turns the power screw. The power screw clamps the disc or rotor between the brake lining pads of a caliper similar to large C-clamp. Wedge brakes and disc brakes are less common than S-cam brakes. 5.1.9 Supply pressure gauges. All vehicles with air brakes have a compressor gauge connected to the air tank. If the vehicle has a dual air brake system, there will be a gauge for each half of the system, or a single gauge with two needles. Two systems will be discussed later. These gauges tell you how much pressure is in the air tanks. 5.1.10 Application pressure gauge. This gauge shows how much air pressure you are applying to the brakes. This gauge is not on all vehicles. Increasing application pressure to hold the same speed means the brakes are fading. You should slow down and use a lower gear than need. For increased pressure can also be caused by brakes out of adjustment or leaks or mechanical problems. 5.1.11 Low air pressure warning. A low air pressure warning signal is required on vehicles with air brakes. A warning signal you can see must come on before the air pressure in the tank falls below 55 psi or one half the compressor's governor cutout pressure on older vehicles. The warning is usually a red light. A buzzer may also come on. Another type of warning is the wag. The wig wag. This device drops a mechanical arm into the view when the pressure is in the system drops below 55 psi. An automatic wig wag will rise out of your view when the pressure in the system goes above 55 psi. The manual reset type must be placed in the out of view position manually. It will not stay in place until the pressure in the system is above 55 psi. On large buses, it is common for low pressure warning devices to signal at 80 to 85 psi. 5.1.12 Stoplight switch. Drivers behind you must be warned when you put on your brakes. The air brake system does this with an electronic switch that covers by air pressure. The switch turns on the brake lights when you put on the air brakes. 5.1.13 Front brake limiting valve. Some older vehicles, made before 1975, have a front brake limiting valve and control in the cab. The control is usually marked normal and slippery. When you put the control on in slippery position, the limiting valve cuts the normal air pressure in front brakes by half. Limiting valves were used to reduce chance on the front wheels skidding on slippery surfaces. However, they actually reduce the stopping power of the vehicle. Front wheel braking is good under all conditions. Tests have shown front wheel skids from braking and not likely even on ice. Make sure the control is the normal position to have normal stopping power. Many vehicles have automatic front wheel limiting valves. They reduce the air to the front brakes except when the brakes are put on very hard 55 psi or more application pressure. These valves can all be controlled by the driver. 5.1.4 Spring brakes. All trucks, tractors, and buses must be equipped with emergency brakes and parking brakes. They must be held on mechanical force because air pressure can eventually leak away. Spring brakes are usually used to meet these needs. When driving, powerful springs are held back by air pressure. If the air pressure is moved, the springs are put on the brakes. A parking brake control in the cab allows the driver to let the air out of the spring brakes. This lets the springs put the brakes on. A leak in the air brake system, which causes all air to be lost, will also cause the springs to put on the brakes. Tractor and straight truck spring brakes will come fully on when air pressure drops to a range 20 to 45 psi, typically 20 to 30 psi. Do not wait for the brakes to come on automatically when the low air pressure warning light and buzzer first come on. Bring the vehicle to a safe stop right away while you can still control the brakes. The braking power of spring brakes depends on the brakes being in adjustment. If the brakes are not adjusted properly, neither the regular brakes nor the emergency parking brakes will work right. 5.1.15 Parking brake controls. In your vehicles, when the air brakes, you put on the parking brakes using a diamond-shaped yellow push-pull control knob. You pull the knob out to put the parking brakes, spring brakes on and push it in to release them. Older vehicles, the parking brakes may be controlled by a lever. Use the parking brakes whenever you park. Caution: never push the brake pedal down when the springs brakes are on. If you do, the brakes could be damaged by combined forces of the springs and air pressure. Many brake systems are designed so this will not happen, but not all systems are set up in that way, and those that are may not always work. It is much better to develop the habit of not pushing the brake pedal down when the spring brakes are on. Modulating control valves. In some vehicles, a control handle on the dashboard may be used to apply the spring brakes gradually. This is called a modulating valve. It is spring-loaded so you have a feel for the braking action. The more you remove the control lever, the harder the spring brakes come on. They work this way so you can control the spring brakes if the service brakes fail. When parking a vehicle with a modulating control valve, move the lever as far as it will go and hold it in place with the locking device. Dual parking control valves. When the main air pressure is lost, the spring brakes come on. Some vehicles, such as buses, have a separate air tank which can be used to release the spring brakes. This is so you can move the vehicle in an emergency. One of the valves is a push-pull type and is used to put on the spring brakes for parking. The other valve is a spring loaded in the out position. When you push the control in, air from the separate air tank releases the spring brakes so you can move. When you release the button, the spring brakes come on again. There is only enough air in the separate tank to do this a few times. Therefore, plan carefully when moving. Otherwise, you may be stopped in a dangerous location with separate air supply runs out. See Figure 5.3. Tractor protection valve and emergency trailer brake operation. Tractor protection valve provides air supply, closing automatically if air supply drops when driving. The parking brakes, when applied, close the tractor protection valve and set the spring brakes at the time. 5.1.16 Anti-lock braking systems, ABS. Truck tractors and air brakes built on or after March 1st, 1997, and other air brake vehicles, truck buses, trailers, and converter dollies built on or after March 1st, 1998, are required to be equipped with anti-lock brakes. Many commercial vehicles built before these dates have been voluntarily equipped with ABS. Check the certification label for the date of manufacture to determine if your vehicle is equipped with ABS. ABS is a computerized system that keeps your wheels from locking up during hard brake applications. Vehicles with ABS have yellow functioning lamps to tell you if something isn't working. Tractors, trucks, and buses will have yellow ABS malfunctioning lamps on the instrument panel. Trailers have yellow ABS malfunctioning lamps on the left side, either on the front or rear corner. Dollies manufactured on or after March 1st, 1998 are required to have a lamp on the left side. On newer vehicles, the malfunction lamp comes on at startup for a bulb check and then goes out quickly. On older systems, the lamp would stay on until you are driving over 5 miles per hour. If the lamp stays on after the bulb check or goes on once you are underway, you may have lost ABS control at one or more wheels. In the case of total unit manufactured before it was required by the Department of Transportation, it may be difficult to tell if the unit is equipped with ABS. Look under the vehicle for the electronic control unit ECU and wheel speed sensor wires coming from the back of the brakes. ABS is, in addition, to your normal brakes, it does not decrease or increase your normal braking compatibility. ABS only activates when the wheels are about to lock up. ABS does not necessarily shorten or stopping distance, but it does help you keep your vehicle under control during hard braking. Air brake system components and location. Single circuit system. Section 5.1. Test your knowledge. 1. Why must air tanks be strained? 2. What is a supply pressure gauge used for? 3. All vehicles with air brakes must have a low air pressure warning signal. True or false? 4. Where are spring brakes? 5. Front vehicle brakes are good under all conditions. True or false? 6. How do you know if your vehicle is equipped with anti-lock brakes? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsections 5.1. 5.2. Dual air brake. Most heavy-duty vehicles use dual air brake systems for safety. A dual air brake system has two separate air brake systems, which use a single set of brake controls. Each system has its own air tanks, hoses, lines, etc. One system typically operates the regular brakes on the rear axle or axles. The other system operates the regular brakes on the front axle and possibly the rear axle. Both systems supply air to the trailer if there is one. The first system is called the primary system. The other is called the secondary system. See figure 5.4. Before driving a vehicle with a dual air system, allow time for the air compressor to build up a minimum 100 psi pressure in both the primary and secondary systems. Watch the primary and secondary air pressure gauges or needles if the system has two needles in one gauge. Pay attention to the low air pressure warning light and buzzers. The warning light and buzzers should shut off when the air pressure in both systems rise to a valve set by the manufacturer. This valve must be greater than 55 psi. The warning light and buzzer should come on before the air pressure drops below 55 psi in either system. If this happens while driving, you should stop right away and safely park the vehicle. If one air system is very low on air pressure, either the front or the rear brakes will not be operating fully. This means it will take you longer to stop. Bring the vehicle to a safe stop and have the air brake system fixed. 5.3. Inspecting air brake systems. You should use the basic 7-step inspection procedure described in Section 2 to inspect your vehicle. There are more things to inspect on a vehicle with air brakes than one without them. These things are discussed below in the order they fit into the 7-step method. 5.3.1. During step 2 engine compartment checks. Check air compressor drive belt. If the air compressor is belt driven, check the condition and tightness of the belt. It should be in good condition. 5.3.2. During step 5, walk around inspection. Check slack adjuster on S-cam brakes. Park on level ground and check the wheels to prevent the vehicle from moving. Release the parking brakes so you can move the slack adjusters. Use gloves and pull hard on slack adjuster that you can reach. If a slack adjuster moves more than about 1 inch where the push rod attaches to it, it probably needs adjustment. Adjusts it or have its adjusts. Vehicles with too much brake slack can be very hard to stop. Out of adjustment brakes are the most common problem found in roadside inspection. Be safe. Check the slack adjusters. All vehicles built since 1994 have automatic slack adjusters. Even though automatic slack adjusters adjust themselves during full brake applications, they must be checked. Automatic adjusters should not have to be manual adjusted except when performing maintenance on the brakes and during installation of the slack adjusters. In a vehicle equipped with automatic adjusters, when the push rod stroke exceeds the legal brake adjustment limit, it is an indication that a mechanical problem exists in the adjuster itself, a problem with the related foundation brake components, or that the adjuster was improperly installed. The manual adjustment of the automatic adjuster to bring air brake push rod strokes within legal limits is generally masking a mechanical problem and is not fixing it. Further routine adjustment of most automatic adjusters will likely result to premature wear of the adjuster itself. It is recommended that when brakes equipped with automatic adjusters are found to be out of adjustment, the driver take the vehicle to a repair facility as soon as possible, have the problem corrected. The manual adjustment of automatic slack adjusters is dangerous because it may give the driver a false Sense of security regarding effectiveness of this braking system. The manual adjustment of an automatic adjuster should be only used as a temporary measure to correct the adjustment in an emergency situation. It is likely the brake will soon be back out of adjustment since the procedure usually does not fix the underlying adjustment problem. No, automatic slack adjusters are made by different manufacturers and do not all operate the same. Therefore, the specific manufacturer service should be consulted prior to troubleshooting a brake adjuster problem. Check brake drums or discs, linings, and hoses. Brake drums or discs must have cracks longer than one half the width of the friction area. Linings, frictional material, must not be loose or soaked with oil or grease. They must not be dangerously thin. Mechanical parts must be in place, not broken or missing. Check the air hoses connected to the brake chambers to make sure they aren't cut or worn. Due to rubbing. 5.3.3, Step 7, Final Air Brake Check. Do the following checks instead of hydraulic brake check down in Section 2, Step 7. Check brake system. Check air compressor governor, cut in and cut out pressure. Pumping by the air compressor should start about 100 psi and stop at about 125 psi. Check manufacturer specifications. Run the engine at a fast idle. The air governor should cut out the air compressor at about the manufacturer specified pressure. The air pressure shown by your gauges will stop rising with the engine idling. Step on and off the brakes to reduce the air tank pressure. The compressor should cut in about the manufacturer's specified cut-in pressure. The pressure should begin to rise. If the air governor does not work as described above, it may need to be fixed. A governor that does not work properly may not keep enough air pressure for safe driving. Test air leakage rate. With a fully charged air system, typically 125 psi, turn off the engine, release the parking brake, push in, and time the air pressure drop. The loss rate should be less than 2 psi in 1 minute for single vehicles and less than 3 psi in 1 minute for combination vehicles. With the air pressure built up, the governor cut off 120 to 140 psi. Shut off the engine, choke the wheels if necessary, release the parking brake all vehicles, and the tractor protected valve combination vehicles, and fully applied the foot brake. Hold the foot brake for 1 minute. Check the air gauge to see if the air pressure drops more than 3 pounds in 1 minute. Single vehicle, or 4 pounds in 1 minute, combination vehicle. If the air pressure falls more than 3 psi in 1 minute for single vehicles, more than 4 psi for combination vehicles, the air loss rate is too much. Check for air leaks and fix before driving the vehicle. Otherwise, you could lose your brakes while driving. Test low pressure warning signal. Shut the engine off when you have enough air pressure so that the low pressure warning signal is not on. Turn the electrical power on and step on and off the brake pedal to reduce air tank pressure. The low air pressure warning signal must come on before the air pressure drops to less than 55 psi in the air tank or tank with the lowest air pressure in dual air systems. See figure 5.5. If the warning signal doesn't work, you could lose air pressure and you would not know it. This could cause sudden emergency braking in a single circuit air system. In dual systems, the stopping distance will be increased. Only limited braking can be done before the spring brakes come on. Low air pressure warning devices. Low air pressure warning. Some vehicles are equipped with a wig-wag that drops into the driver's vehicle view and will not stay up in place until the desired air pressure is restored. Figure 5.5. Check that the spring brakes come on automatically. Continue to fan off the air pressure by stepping on and off the brake pedal to reduce tank pressure. The tractor protection valve and parking brake valve should pop out on the tractor-trailer combination vehicle and the parking. Brake valve should pop out on the combination and single vehicle types when the air pressure falls to manufacturer specification 20 to 45 psi. This will cause the spring brakes to come on. Check rate of air pressure buildup. When the engine is at operating RPMs, the pressure should build from 85 to 100 psi within 45 seconds in dual air systems. If the vehicle has larger than minimum air tanks, the buildup time can be longer. still be safe. Check the manufacturer's specification. In single air systems pre-1975, typical requirements are pressure build up from 50 to 90 psi within 3 minutes with the engine at an idle speed of 600 to 900 RPMs. If the air pressure does not build up fast enough, your pressure may drop too low during driving. Regarding required an emergency stop, don't drive until you get the problem fixed. Test parking brake. Stop the vehicle. Put the parking brake on and gently pull against it in a low gear to test the parking brake will hold. Test service brakes. Wait for normal air pressure release. The parking brake move the vehicle forward slowly. Test service brakes. Wait for normal air pressure release. The parking brake move the vehicle forward slowly, about 5 miles per hour, and apply the brakes firmly using the brake pedal. Note any vehicle pulling to one side unusually feel or delayed stopping action. This test may show your problems, which you otherwise wouldn't know about until you needed brakes on the road. Subsections 5.2 and 5.3. Test your knowledge. 1. What is a dual air brake system? 2. What are the slack adjusters? 3. How can you check slack adjusters? 4. How can you test the low pressure warning signals? 5. How can you check that the spring brakes come on automatically? 6. What are the maximum leakage rates? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsections 5.2 and 5.3. 5.4. Using air brakes. 5.4.1. Normal stops. Push the brake pedal down. Control the pressure so the vehicle comes to a smooth stop. Safe stop. If you have manual transmissions, don't push the clutch in until the engine RPM is down close to idle. When stopped, select a starting gear. 5.4.2. Braking with anti-lock brakes. When you brake hard on slippery surfaces in a vehicle without ABS, your wheels may lock up. When your steering wheels lock up, you lose steering control. When other wheels lock up, you may skid, jackknife, or even spin the vehicle. ABS helps you avoid wheel lockup. The computer sense impending lockup reduces the braking pressure to a safe level, and you may maintain control. You may or may not be able to stop faster with ABS, but you should be able to steer around an obstacle while braking and avoiding skids caused by over braking. Having ABS on only tractor and trailer, or even on only one axle, still gives you more control over the vehicle during brake normally. When the tractor has ABS, and you should be able to maintain steering control, and there is less chance of jackknifing. But keep your eye on the trailer and let up on the brakes if you can safely do so if it begins to swing out. When only the trailer has ABS, the trailer is less likely to swing out. But if you lose steering control or start a tractor jackknife, let up on the brakes if you can safely do so under you gain control. When you drive a tractor trailer combination with ABS, you should brake as you always have. In other words, use the braking force necessary to stop safely and stay in control. Brake the same way regardless of whether you have ABS on the tractor, the trailer, or both. As you slow down, monitor your tractor and trailer and back off the brakes if it is safe to do so to stay in control. There's only one exception to the procedure. If you always drive a straight truck or combination with working ABS on all axles in an emergency stop, you can carefully apply the brakes. Without ABS, you still have normal brake functions, drive and brakes as you always have. Remember, if your ABS malfunctions, you still have regular brakes. Drive normally, but get the system serviced soon. 5.4.3. Emergency stops. If somebody suddenly pulls out in front of you, your natural response is to hit the brakes. This is a good response if there is enough distance to stop and you use the brakes correctly. You should brake in a way that will keep your vehicle in a straight line and allow you to turn if it becomes necessary. You can use the controlled braking method or stab braking method. Controlled braking. With this method, you apply the brakes as hard as you can without locking the wheels, keeping steering wheel movement very small while doing this. If you need to make a larger steering adjustment or the vehicle is locked, release the brakes, reapply the brakes as soon as you can. Stab braking. Apply your brakes all the way. Release brakes when wheels lock up. As soon as the wheels start rolling, apply the brakes fully again. It can take up to 1 second for the wheels to start rolling after you release the brakes. If you reapply the brakes before the wheels start rolling, the vehicles won't straighten out. 5.4.4 Stopping distance. Stopping distance was described in section 2 under speed and stopping distance. With air brakes, there is an added delay, braking lag. This is the time required for the brakes to work after the brake pedal is pushed. With hydraulic brakes used on cars and light medium trucks, the brakes work instantly. However, the air brakes, it takes a little time, 1/2 second or more, for the air to flow through the lines to the brakes. Thus, the total stopping distance for the vehicles with air brake systems is made of 4 different factors: perception distance plus reaction distance plus brake lag distance plus braking distance equals total stopping distance. The air brake lag distance at 55 miles per hour on dry pavement adds about 32 feet. So at 55 miles per hour for an average driver under good traction and brake conditions, the total stopping distance is over 450 feet. See figure 5.6. Figure 5.6. Figure 5.4.5. Brake fading or failure. Brakes are designed to brake shoes or pads rub against the brake drum or disc to slow the vehicle. Braking creates heat, but brakes are designed to take a lot of heat. However, brakes can fade or fail from excessive heat caused by using them too much and not relying on the engine braking effect. Excessive use of the service brakes result in overheating and leads to brake fade. Brake fade results from excessive heat causing chemical changes in the brake lining, which reduce friction and causing expansion of the brake drums. As the overheated drums expand, the brake shoes and linings have to move farther to contact the drums, and force of this contact is reduced. Continued overuse may increase brake fade until the vehicle cannot be slowed down or stopped. Brake fade is also affected by adjustment. To safely control a vehicle, every brake must do its share of the work. Brakes out of the adjustment will stop doing their share before those that are in adjustment. The other brakes can be overheated and fade, and there will not be enough braking available to control the vehicles. Brakes can get out of adjustment quickly, especially when they are hot. Therefore, check brake adjustment often. Figure 5.4.6 Proper braking technique. Remember, the use of brakes and long and or steer downgrade is only a supplement to the braking effect of the engine. Once the vehicle is in proper low gear, the following is the proper braking technique. Apply brakes just hard enough to feel a definite slowdown. When your speed has been reduced to approximately 5 miles per hour below safe speed, release the brakes. This application should last for about 3 seconds. When your speed has increased to your safe speed, repeat steps 1 and 2. For example, if your safe speed is 40 miles per hour, you would not apply the brakes until your speed reaches 40 miles per hour. You now apply the brakes hard enough to gradually reduce your speed to 35 miles per hour and then release the brakes. Repeat this as often as necessary until you have reached the end of the downgrade. 5.4.7 Low air pressure. If the low air pressure warning comes on, stop and safely park your vehicle as soon as possible. There might be an air leak in the system. Controlled braking is possible only when enough air remains in the air tanks. The spring brakes will come on when the air pressure drops into the range of 20 to 45 psi. A heavily loaded vehicle will take a long distance to stop because the spring brakes do not work on all axles. Lightly loaded vehicles or vehicles on slippery roads may skid out of control when the spring brakes come on. It is much safer to stop while there is enough air in the tanks to use the foot brakes. 5.4.8 Parking brakes. Any time you park, use the parking brakes except as noted below. Pull the parking brake control knob out to apply the parking brakes. Push it in to release. The control will be a yellow diamond-shaped knob labeled parking brakes or newer brake vehicles. On older vehicles, it may be a round blue knob or some other shape, including a lever that swings from side to side or up and down. Don't use the parking brakes if the brakes are very hot. from just having come down a steep grade, or if the brakes are very wet in freezing temperatures. If they are used while they are very hot, they can be damaged by the heat. If they are used in freezing temperatures when the brakes are very wet, they can freeze so the vehicle cannot move. Use wheel chokes on a level surface to hold the vehicle. Let hot brakes cool before using the parking brakes. If the brakes are wet, use the brakes lightly while driving in a low gear to heat and dry them. If your vehicle does not have automatic air tank drains, drain your air tank at the end of each working day to remove moisture and oil. Otherwise, the brakes could fail. Never leave your vehicle unattended without applying the parking brake or choking the wheels. Your vehicle might roll away and cause injury and damage. Subsection 5.4. Test your knowledge. 1. Why should you be in the proper gear before starting downhill? 2. What factors can cause brakes to fade or fail? 3. The use of brakes on long, steep downgrades is only a supplement to the braking effect of the engine. True or false? 4. If you are away from your vehicle only a short time, you do not need to use a parking brake. True or false? 5. How often should you drain air tanks? 6. How should you brake when you drive a tractor-trailer combination with ABS? 7. You still have normal braking functions if your ABS is not working. True or false? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsection 5.4. Section 6. Combination vehicles. This section covers driving combination vehicles, air brakes, anti-lock brake systems, couplings, and uncoupling inspection combination. This section provides information needed to pass the test for combination vehicles, tractor-trailer, doubles, triples, straight truck with trailers. The information is only to give you the minimum knowledge needed for driving common combination vehicles. You should also study Section 7 if you need to pass the test for doubles and triples. 6.1. Driving combination vehicles safely. Combination vehicles are usually heavier, longer, and require more driving skill than single combination vehicles. This means the driver of the combination vehicles needs more knowledge and skill than drivers of single vehicles. In this section, we talk about some important safety factors that apply specifically to combination vehicles. 6.1.1. Rollover risks. More than half of a vehicle's drivers' deaths and crashes are the result of truck rollovers. When more cargo is piled up on the truck, the center of gravity moves higher up from the road. The truck becomes easier to turn over. Fully loaded rigs are 10 times more likely to roll over in a crash than empty rigs. The following two things will help you prevent rollover. Keeps the cargo as close to the ground as possible and drive slowly around turns. Keeping cargo low is even more important in combination vehicles than in straight trucks. Also, keep the load centered on your rig. If the load is to one side, so it makes a trailer lean, a rollover is more likely. Make sure the cargo is centered and spread out as much as possible. Cargo distribution is covered in Section 3 of this manual. Rollover happens when you turn too fast, drive slowly around corners, on ramps, and off ramps. Six point 1.2. Steering gently. Trucks with trailers have a dangerous crack the whip effect. When you make a quick lane change, the crack the whip effect can turn the trailer over. These are many accidents where only the trailer has overturned. Reward amplification causes the crack the whip effect. Figure 6.1 shows 8 types of combination vehicles and rearward amplification. Each has in a quick lane change. Rigs with at least crack the whip effect are shown at the top, and those with the most are at the bottom. Rearward amplification of 2.0 in the chart means that the rear trailer is twice as likely to turn over as the tractor. You can see that triples have a rearward amplification of 3.5. This means that you can roll over at least trailers You can roll the last trailer of triples 3.5 times as easily as a 5-axle tractor. Steer gently and smoothly when you are pulling trailers. If you can make sudden movements with your steering wheel, your trailer could tip over. Follow far enough behind other vehicles, at least 1 second for each 10 feet of your vehicle length, plus another second if you're going 40 miles per hour. Look far enough down the road to avoid being surprised and having to make a sudden lane change at night. Drive slowly enough to see obstacles with your headlights before it's too late to change lanes or stop gently. Slow down to a safe speed before going into a turn. 6.1.3 Brake early. Control your speed whether fully loaded or empty. Large combination vehicles take longer to stop when they are empty than when they are fully loaded. When lightly loaded, the very stiff suspension springs and strong brakes give poor traction and make it very easy to lock up the wheels. Your trailer can swing out and strike other vehicles. Your tractor can jackknife very quickly. You also must be very careful about driving bobtail tractors without semi-trailers. Tests have shown that bobtails can be very hard to stop smoothly. It takes them longer to stop than a tractor semi-trailer loaded to maximum gross weight. Any combination rig allows lots of following distance and look far ahead, so you can brake early. Don't be caught up by surprise. Don't be caught by surprise and have to make a panic stop. Influence of combination type on rearward amplification. Figure 6.1. 6.1.4 Railroad highway crossing. Railroad highway crossing can also cause problems, particularly when pulling trailers with low underneath clearance. These trailers can get stuck on raised crossings, low slung units, low by car carrier, moving van, possum belly livestock trailer, single axle tractor pulling a long trailer with its loading gear set to accommodate the tandem axle tractor. If for any reason you get stuck on the tractor, get out of the vehicle and away from the tracks. Check signpost or signal housing of the crossing for emergency notification information. Call 911 or other emergency number. Give the location of the crossing using all identification landmarks, especially the dot number if posted. 6.1.5 Prevent trailer skids. When the wheels of the trailer lock up and the trailer will tend to swing around. This is more likely to happen when the trailer is empty or lights loaded. This type of jackknife is often called a trailer jackknife. See figure 6.2. The procedure of stopping a trailer skid is recognize the skid. The earliest and best way to recognize that the trailer has started to skid is by seeing it in your mirrors. Anytime you apply the brakes hard, check the mirrors to make sure the trailer is staying where it should be. Once the trailer swings out of your lane, it's very difficult to prevent a jackknife. From R.D. Irvin R.L. Nisconger C.C. McAdam and P.S.S. Fancher influence the size and weight variables on the stability and control properties of heavy trucks. University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute, 1983. Without entering another traffic lane, turn right as you complete the turn. This is better than swinging right to the left before starting the turn because it will keep other drivers from passing you on the right. See figure 6.4. Figure 6.3. Excuse me. Trailer jackknife. 6.2. Stop using the brake. Release the brakes to get traffic back. Do not use a trailer hand brake if you have one. To straighten out the rig, this is the wrong thing to do since the brakes on the trailer wheel cause the skid in the first place. Once the trailer wheels grip the road again, the trailer will start to follow the tractor and straighten out. 6.1.6 Turn wide. When the vehicle goes around a corner, the rear wheels follow a different path than the front wheels. This is called off tracking or cheating. Figure 6.3. shows how off-tracking causes the path followed by a tractor to be wider than the rig itself. Longer vehicles will off-track more. The rear wheels of the powered unit, truck or tractor, will off-track some, and the rear wheels of the trailer will off-track even more. If there is more than one trailer, the rear wheels of the last trailer will off-track the most. Steer the front end wide. Steer the front end wide enough around the corner so the rear ends do not run over the curb, pedestrians, etc. However, keep the rear of your vehicles close to the curb. This will stop other drivers from passing you on the right if you cannot complete your turn without entering another traffic lane. Turn wide. Turn wide as you complete the turn. This is better than swinging wide to the left before starting the turn because it will keep you other drivers from passing you on the right. See figure 6.4. 6.1.7. Backing with a trailer. Backing with a trailer. When backing a car, straight, truck, or bus, you turn the top of the steering wheel in the direction you want to go. When backing a trailer, you turn the steering wheel in the opposite direction. Once the trailer starts to turn, you must turn the wheel the other way to follow the trailer. Whenever you back up with a trailer, try to position your vehicle so you can back in a straight line. If you must back on a curved path, back to the driver's side so you can see. See figure 6.5. Figure 6.5. Look in the direction, look at the path, look at your line of travel. Before you begin, get out and walk around the vehicle. Check your clearance to the sides and overhead and near the path of your vehicle. Use mirrors on both sides. Check the outside mirrors on both sides frequently. Get out of the vehicle and reinspect your path if you are unsure. Back slowly. This will let you make corrections before you get too far off course. Correct drift immediately. As soon as you see the trailer getting off proper path correct it by turning the top of the steering wheel in the direction of the drift. Pull forward. When backing a trailer, make pull-ups to reposition your vehicle as needed. Subsection 6.1. Test your knowledge. 1. What two things are important to prevent rollover? 2. When you turn suddenly while pulling doubles with trailers, which trailer is most likely to turn over? 2. When you turn suddenly while pulling doubles, which trailer is most likely to turn over? 3. Why should you not use the trailer hand brake to straighten out a jackknifing trailer? 4. What is off-tracking? 5. When you back a trailer, you should position your vehicle so you can back in a curved path to the driver's side. True or false? 6. What type of trailers can get stuck on railroad highway crossings? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsection 6.1. 6.2 Combination Vehicle Air Brakes. You should study section 5 air brakes before reading this. In combination vehicles, the braking system has part to control the trailer brakes. In addition to the parts described in section 5, these parts are described below. 6.2.1 Trailer hand valve. The trailer hand valve, also called the trolley valve or Johnson bar, works the trailer brakes. The trailer hand valve should be used only to test the trailer brakes. Do not use in driving because of the danger of making the trailer skid. The foot brake sends air to all the brakes on the vehicle, including the trailers. This is much less danger of causing a skid or jackknifing when using just the foot brake. Never use the hand valve for parking because all the air might leak out, unlocking the brakes. In trailers that don't have spring brakes, always use the parking brakes when parking. If the trailer does not have spring brakes, use wheel chokes to keep the trailer from moving. 6.2.2 Tractor Protection Valve. The tractor protection valve keeps air in the tractor or truck brake system. Should the trailer break away or develop a bad leak. The tractor protection valve is controlled by the trailer air supply control valve in the cab. The control valve allows you to open and shut the tractor protection valve. The tractor protection valve will close automatically if the air pressure is low, in the range 20 to 45 psi. When the tractor protection valve closes, it stops any air from going out of the tractor. It also lets the air out of trailer emergency lines. This causes the trailer emergency brakes to come on with possible loss of control. Emergency brakes are covered later. 6.2.3 Trailer air supply control. The trailer air supply control on newer vehicles is a red 8-sided knob which you can control the tractor protection valve. You push it to supply the trailer with air and pull it out to shut the air off and put the trailer emergency brakes. The valve will pop out, thus closing the tractor protection valve. When the air pressure drops into a range of 20 to 45 psi, the protection valve controls or emergency valves on older vehicles may not operate automatically. There may be lever rather than a knob. The normal position is used for pulling a trailer. The emergency position is used to shut the air off and put the trailer emergency brakes. 6.2.4 Trailer airlines. Every combination vehicle has two airlines: the service line and the emergency line. They run between each vehicle: tractor to trailer, trailer to dolly, dolly to second trailer, etc. Service airline. The service line, also called the control line or signal line, carries air which is controlled by the foot brake or trailer hand brake, depending on how hard you press the foot brake or hand valve. The pressure in the service line will similarly change. The service line is connected to relay valves. These valves allow the trailer brakes to be applied more quickly than would otherwise be possible. Emergency airline. The emergency line, also called the supply line, has two purposes. First, it supplies air to the trailer and air tanks. Second, the emergency line controls the emergency brakes on combination vehicles. Loss of air pressure in the emergency line causes the trailer emergency brakes to come on. The pressure loss could be caused by a trailer breaking loose, thus tearing apart the emergency air hose, or it could be caused by hose metal tubing or other part breaking, letting the air out. When the emergency line loses pressure, it also causes the tractor protection valve to close. The air supply knob will pop out. Emergency lines are often coated with the color red hose, red couplers, or other parts to keep from getting them mixed up with blue service line. 6.2.5 Hose coupler. Glad hands. Glad hands are coupling devices used to connect the service and emergency air lines from the truck or tractor to the trailer. The couplers have a rubber seal which prevent air from escaping. Clean the couplers and rub seals before a connection is made. When connecting the glad hands, press the two seals together with the couplers at a 90 degree angle to each other. A turn of the glad hands attached to the hose will join and lock the couplers. When coupling, make sure the couple the proper glad hands together. To help avoid mistakes, colors are sometimes used. Blue is used for the service lines and red for the emergency supply lines. Sometimes metal tags are attached to the lines with the word service and emergency stamped on them. See figure 6.6. If you do not cross the airlines, supply air will be sent to the service line instead of going to charge the trailer air tanks. Air will not be available to release the trailer spring brakes. Parking brakes. If the brakes don't release when you push the trailer air supply control, check the airline connections. Older trailers do not have spring brakes. If the air supply in the trailer air tank has leaked away, there will be no emergency brakes and the trailer wheels will turn freely. If you cross the airlines, you could drive away, but you wouldn't have trailer brakes. This would be very dangerous. Always test the trailer brakes before driving with the hand valve or by pulling the air supply. Tractor protection valve control. Pull gently against them in a lower gear to make sure the brakes work. Sometimes vehicles have dead end or dummy couplers to which the hoses may be attached when they are not in use. This will prevent water or dirt from getting into the coupler and the airlines. Use the dummy couplers with the airlines when the airlines are not connected to the trailer. If there are no dummy couplers, the glad hands can sometimes be locked together depending on the couplings. It is very important to keep the air supply clean. 6.2.6 Trailer air tanks. Each trailer and converter dolly has one or more air tanks. They are filled by the emergency supply line from the tractor. They provide the air pressure used to operate trailer brakes. Air pressure is sent from the air brake tanks to the brakes by relay valves. The pressure in the service lines tells how much pressure the relay valves should send to the trailer brakes. The pressure in the service line is controlled by the brake pedal and the trailer handbrake. It is important that you don't let water and oil build up in the air tanks. If you do, the brakes may not work correctly. Each tank has a drain valve on it, and you should drain each tank every day. If your tank have automatic drainage, they will keep most moisture out, but you should still open the drains to make sure. 6.2.7 Shut-off valves. Shut-off valves, also called cutout cooks, are used in the service and supply airlines at the back of the trailer, used to tow other trailers. These valves permit closing the airlines off when another trailer is not being towed. You must check that all shut-off valves are in open position except the ones at the back of the last trailer, which must be closed. 6.2.8 Trailer service, parking, and emergency brakes. Newer trailers have spring brakes just like trucks and tractors. However, converter dollies and trailers built before 1975 are not required to have spring brakes. Those that do not have spring brakes have emergency brakes, which work from the air stored in the trailer air tank. The emergency brakes come on whenever air pressure in the emergency line is lost. These trailers have no parking brake. The emergency brakes come on whenever the air supply knob is pulled out or the trailer is disconnected. A major leak in the emergency line will cause the tractor protection valve to close and the trailer emergency brakes to come on, but the brakes will not hold only as long as there is air pressure in the trailer air tank. Eventually, the air will leak away and then there will be no brakes. Therefore, it is very important for safety that you use wheel chokes when you park trailers without spring brakes. You may not notice a major leak in the service line until you try to put on the brakes. Then the air loss from the leaks will lower the air tank pressure quickly. If it goes low enough, the trailer emergency brakes will come on. Subsection 6.2 Test your knowledge. 1. Why should you not use a trailer hand valve while driving? 2. Describe what the trailer air supply control does. 3. Describe what the service line is for. 4. What is the emergency airline for? 5. Why should you use chokes when parking a trailer without spring brakes? 6. Where are the shut-off valves? These questions may be on the test. If you cannot answer them all, reread subsection 6.2.